Hello and welcome. This is Jenna from McGuire. This video actually has two parts to it. First, I'm going to share with you a fun way to get smaller die cuts by using heat shrinking of craft foam. And the second part is going to introduce you to some of the newest colors of Simon Says stamp inks. They've released 12 new colors, and I know people like to see how they compare to colors that are already out there. So let's go ahead and start with the heat shrinking of craft foam. That's what I use for the tiny little embellishments that you see on these simple cards. I have some inexpensive craft foam here. This is that stuff that we played with as a kid. It's also known as fun foam. Now this die cuts beautifully. I've shown in videos in the past that I use this to add dimension to my cards, but here we're going to create embellishments with it. So I'm using a new Simon Says stamp Hello die. This is a beautiful Hello die. And I'm going to die cut a bunch of pieces of this white craft foam, and it die cuts beautifully. Now you could leave this die cut as is, the nice white color, but I am going to change the colors. You could also buy a bunch of colors of the craft foam. It's available in a ton of colors, but why buy a bunch of colors when you can just use your ink to change the color of the white? So here I'm taking one of the new colors of Simon Says stamp die ink and smearing it over the top of that die cut. By leaving it in its negative space, the die cut actually ends up with this little white trim around the edge. It's really cool. But I really want to cover it completely with the ink. So I'm just going to take that ink pad and smoosh it down right on top of that die cut. This will change the color completely. Now, this is a die ink, and on this surface, it doesn't want to dry on its own. It will stay wet, which is fun because you could actually stamp with it. But what I'm going to do is heat set it. And as I heat set it, I'm going to shrink this little die cut. So watch, as I apply the heat with my heat gun, you'll see it all kind of heat shrink in, just pull right in. Now this particular craft foam that I'm using doesn't really smell all that strong, and it's such a small piece that I don't think it's a problem. So no problems with the smell. A lot of people have asked about that. And check it out. Now I have a little embellishment here that has color on the top of it, and it's smaller than what we started with. So this is a fun way to take a die that you have and make a smaller version. And it's got a little bit of dimension to it also. I'm going to do another example here. This time I'm using the new Simon Says stamp color called Hot Mama. It's a fun kind of pinkish purple color. Now, one thing to note, when you ink up your die cut and then heat shrink it, the color changes slightly because of that reaction that we're doing when we add that heat to the foam. So you can see here it's kind of a light pinkish purple, but when we add the heat, this will darken. All the colors kind of change a little bit. It just depends on the color. But with this color, you can see it gets darker as we heat set it. Now, because we applied heat to this, that color will stay now. It won't rub off, so you don't have to worry about it. And you have a nice, dark, dimensional die cut that's completely different than the original die that we started with. And I did a few others here using the Simon Says stamp die inks, but you can try any ink that you may have. Okay, so for these examples I just showed you, I inked up the foam and then I heat set it to do the shrinking. Now, if you want a softer color or a more true color to the ink pad that you're using, you can ink it up after you do the heat setting or the shrinking. So I wanted to show that example here. So I have a white craft foam die cut here. I haven't done any coloring to it, and I'm going to heat it up to shrink it. Notice that it becomes flexible as you're heating it. So I use a little paper piercer to hold it in place. And it will become flexible, but that's okay. Just kind of form it back into its original shape and then just press your hand to it as it cools or put an acrylic block on top. And that'll keep it back to its shape. So it will be flexible as you're heating it, but you can always bring it back. Okay, so now after I've heat shrunk it this time, I am applying the ink afterwards, and this will give you a more true color. But again, this ink will want to rub off if you don't heat set it. So I just go back and I add a little bit of heat here, just a little bit. It's not going to shrink anymore. We just don't want to burn it, so you don't need to add a ton of heat to it. Just touch it with your fingers to see if the ink has dried on it, and there you have a more true color added to the top of your die cut. So you can see the one on the top, we added the ink before heat shrinking, and the one on the bottom, we added the ink after heat shrinking. So you can get a variety of colors out of one ink pad too. So now that we have our little Hello die cuts ready, let's go ahead and create the background. I have cut some note cards down to be top folding, but it's a smaller size note card. It's actually a 4-bar note card. So this is about 3.5 by 4 7/8. Now I'm going to use an embossing folder to emboss the front of this note card. This is a new Echo Park embossing folder. I'm lining it up so that the pattern is centered on the front of the card, running this through my die cut machine using the sandwich that I normally use for an embossing folder. By the way, you can use embossing folders with pretty much any die cut machine you may have. I wanted to keep this card simple, but by adding this bit of texture to the background, the white background, it has a little bit of interest. Now I'm stamping some sentiments from an older Simon Says stamp set. This is one of my favorites. I'm stamping on black cardstock strips with Versamark ink and adding some white embossing powder. I really love simple cards that have a white background, a bold black sentiment, and then little pops of color here and there. Now after heat setting this, I'm going to add this across our note card with some foam tape so it has a little bit of dimension. So I have my favorite 3M Scotch foam tape. I'm going to tear off a strip and cut it right down the center so that it's narrow. And I'm going to put a strip along the back of the black piece and add that to our card. Notice I'm using the Simon Says stamp grid paper as my work surface, and I can use that grid to make sure that I'm adhering this straight across my card. Okay, so now it's time to add our little embellishments. There's a few ways you can glue these little heat shrunk foam pieces down. I decided that the best one for me was using this little sticker maker from Xyron. You just put the piece in, pull it out the other side, and it puts a sticky back onto your little die cut. And this dimension even went through the sticker maker with no problem. Now you really want to press that release paper on to avoid getting stickiness around the outside of the die cut. And I even use a bone folder to kind of rub in between all the little nooks and crannies to make sure we don't end up with a mess. So then you just peel off that top release paper and you have stickiness on the back of your die cut so you can add it onto your card. And I found that this sticks very nicely. Now at this point, I thought I was going to put all of these die cuts on one card. I kind of played around with the design. I'll admit I struggled with this, kind of putting this all together. I don't know why, I just didn't have my mojo that day. But I ended up coming up with a few different designs. I decided I wanted to scatter a few dimensional hearts on the background in a soft color. So I die cut some Simon Says stamp hearts from some of that white craft foam, and I put it on a piece of sticky tape so they didn't go dancing all over my work surface. So I'm taking a pink ink, one of the new Simon Says stamp die inks once again, and I'm going to press this onto these craft foam pieces. Now I haven't heat shrunk anything. And when I did this, I was like, oh, this is a little bit too dark for me. I want it to be lighter. So watch what I do. I actually just stamp them off. And watch, you can create your own stamps using die cut craft foam. See the little hearts I stamped? So I could use them as a stamp if I wanted to, but I also end up with lighter colored hearts. Now I am going to heat set this from far away, just a little bit of heat, just enough to make that ink dry, but not enough to kind of activate the shrinking. So I end up with some lighter color craft foam hearts here. So I'm going to kind of position these on the back of my card, decide where I want each of them. And this time, since these are tiny little suckers, I'm going to go ahead and use some multi-medium and the matte finish to adhere these onto my card. This adhesive, just like the Xyron sticker maker that I just showed you, seems to hold these craft foam embellishments very well onto the card, but you can try whatever adhesive that you might have. I think the stronger the better, because I do plan to put these through the mail. So on the finished card, you can see the hearts that we didn't heat shrink, the craft foam hearts with no heat shrinking, but we did add color with the ink. And then also the heat shrunk craft foam die cuts for the hello that we added color to also. So I finished off the cards, a few different variations here, all using the same techniques. Okay, so now I promised I would do a review of the new 12 colors of inks from Simon Says Stamp. If you've never seen these inks before, I have a video that I'll link to here and in the description below that talks about the unique properties of these inks. They stamp dark and very splotchy at first, but as they absorb into the paper, they kind of even out. There are 12 new delicious colors in this collection. Some of them kind of have a sherbety color to them. Some of them are very light. So I thought I would go ahead and walk you through how each color compares to the current dye inks that are out there. I'll be showing you the comparisons using my ink swatch book. I have a video on how I do this, and I'll link to that along with the free downloads to create your own ink swatch book. I did want to mention I kind of changed my ink swatch book up a little bit. I separated the dye inks from the pigment inks. So all my red dye inks are together, all my red pigment inks are together, all my orange dye inks are together, all my orange pigment inks are together. It's up to you which system works best for you, but I seem to use dye and pigment based on what my need is, so I decided to keep them separate. Okay, so let's start with the comparison. We have two pinks in this new collection. The first is Twirling Tutu. It's kind of a dollish light pink that's beautiful. A little bit darker than Cotton Candy Simon ink. A little bit lighter than the Soft Blossom Hero Art Shadow ink. So it's a really unique color. I really like it teamed up with the Simon Hollyhock ink. That's a good combination there. The next pink color is called Teeny Bikini, and this is a beautiful bright peach color. You can see it's closest to the Lawn Fawn Wild Rose, but it is brighter than that color. This ink looks a little bit pink and a little bit red, so you can team it up with a few different inks. I like it with the Hot Lips Simon Says Stamp ink, and it looks great with the lighter pink Gumball from Ranger. That's one of my favorite new dye inks. Now, I did mention this is a little peachy, but it's not as orange as some of my other peach colors. So it is a little bit more pink. It goes nicely with the Rosy Cheeks from Simon. So it is a unique color, a little bit more pink than most of my peach inks. Now for more peachy color, there is the Apricot ink. This is another new color. It looks great with the Dark Quartz from Hero Art Shadow ink and also with the Coral Reef from Simon. It's a lighter version of that. You can see it is more orange than the Rosy Cheeks color. It looks nice with the Sunkissed, but it's very close. It's just slightly lighter than the Sunkissed from Simon. And it looks good with the kind of soft orange of the Melon color, which was just released from Simon also. Now for greens, there are a lot of great green dye inks out there. This Willow is beautiful. You can see I have a lot of green inks that are very close together, so you can see how this compares. The Willow is slightly darker than the Lime Green from Hero Arts, which is one of my favorite colors. And you can see it has more of an olive tone than the Jelly Bean Simon ink. You can see a lot of these greens are close, but I use a lot of greens. Now, I did mention it was a little more olive than some of the greens, but not as olive as some others that I have. You can see how it compares to some of the other various greens I have here. The Catkin ink, which was in the last Simon release, is definitely more of a brownish color. Now, Lucky, this is the most unique color of all. It's like a Kelly green. It looks great with the Ranger Dye Lily Pad green. And you can see it's a lot more vibrant than the Fern from Simon. So this is a very unique green color. As I said, I have a lot of greens, but not many that look like this one. Moving on to Mint Candy. This is a good like medium color mint, which I didn't really seem to have many of. Compared to the other newer colored ink from Simon called Spring Rain, it's a little more green. And it is darker than the original Simon mint color. So Mint Candy is a little bit darker. I don't really have this medium shade of mint, so it's nice to add to my collection. The next new one is Lake Shores. Now this is slightly darker than the Sea Glass from Simon. That's one of the popular colors that was released quite a while ago. You can see it over here on the left. You can see how this fits in with the rest. I will say that this is very close to the Hero Arts Soft Pool, so you can see the comparison there. I use these colors quite a bit, so I will probably be reaching for those inks. Now High Dive, this is another one that is pretty unique. You can see it's very turquoisey. It's brighter than the Peacock from Lawn Fawn that you see in the middle. It looks great with the Malibu Simon ink up there at the top. But this one's pretty unique, and this is probably one of my favorites from this collection of 12. It looks great with a lot of those super dark teal colors. This color is definitely bluer than the teals and the pool colors I have. Next, we have Steel Blue. This is a really unique color. It looks great with Stonewash from Hero Art. It's a little bit lighter than that. You can see it's a lot more gray than Blue Jay from Simon, which is a great color too. It looks wonderful teamed up with the Soft Sky from Hero Arts. This is definitely more of a steel blue color, which is what it's called, than anything else I have. And this is how it compares to the Cloudy Sky from Simon. So this one also looks nice with a dark navy color, so you can team it up with many of the navy inks that are on the market. Now there are two new purple colors. The first is Thistle, and this is a really unique color. It's kind of like it's a light purple, but it's a little bit warmer than any of the other light purples that I have, so it's very unique. As I move it around here, you can see it kind of stands alone, so this is a unique ink. If you want to find something a little bit different, this might be a good choice. And then there is Hot Mama. I really like this color. It's like a dark purplish pink. It looks great with the W+9 Bloomsbury, which is one of my favorite colors. It also looks good with Grape Juice from Hero Arts. Again, this one is pretty unique also. I don't have many other colors like it. Let me compare it to a few more over here. It looks great with the Wild Orchid Ranger Dye ink, a little bit darker. So that's another unique one. Last but not least, we have Stone, which is like a medium gray color that's slightly warm. It's lighter than Cobblestone from Simon and darker than Fog from Simon. Those three together would look really nice. Fog, which is light, Stone, which is medium, and Cobblestone, which is a little bit darker. You can see it's warmer than most of the other gray options that I have. I use gray inks a lot, especially on gray tone-on-tone backgrounds. So there you have it, a look at the 12 new inks from Simon Says Stamp, along with a fun technique of heat shrinking craft foam. All the supplies are linked below in my YouTube description, or you can go over to my blog at jennifermcguireinc.com. Thanks for watching.